Hey everybody, my name is Marco Nunez. I'm injury prevention specialist with Faithful Work here at the Orange County office, specifically working Icon. Normally, I'm also down at the Torrance facility, along with the Santa Barbara facility, and also the town campus. Today, we're going to go over a quick overview of a stretching exercise, a stretching routine that you should do at home, either preferably prior to your activities, prior to your workday, and also you can also do it after your workday or after your activities to try to help reduce some of the soreness, some of the achiness that can develop from either you sitting down on your workstation at home for long periods of time. For example, as far as your wrist can get sore, which can develop to carpal tunnel. We can kind of address it by doing some simple stretching exercises specifically for that. Or also, if you're a field tech and you're out and about climbing poles, climbing ladders, getting in through the attics or anything like that, to try to help reduce some of the soreness that can develop in your legs, or also some of the low back achiness or discomfort that you might develop from a long day of work, from climbing, picking up ladders, or anything of that sort. Or you can also get some of the backache. You'll be surprised from just sitting down for prolonged periods of time, typing. So we're going to go through a quick, maybe 20 to 30 minute exercise stretching routine. We're going to start from the top, basically the neck. Going to go up to the shoulder areas, the wrist, low back stretches, and then also the lower legs, or the lower, referred to as the lower extremities. So let's get started. The first one is we're going to start with the neck. We're going to do there are 3 key stretches that you want to do, or 3 key muscles you want to kind of focus on, and these are some of the first movements. I'm going to show you how to do them either standing up. I have a chair here that I can demonstrate really quick what you can do in the chair. So if you're sitting down and you're typing, you don't need to get up. You can just do it in one chair. And I'm also going to demonstrate something. If you do have access to a floor or space, you can kind of do it here on the floor. So the first one is stretching your neck muscles in 3 areas. First one is basically going to do kind of what's called the ladder stretch. You can bring your ear to your shoulder. And you're going to bring it to the side. You can take it out with your hand and kind of give it a nice little tug to give it a nice little stretch up in the upper trap areas. Okay. Make sure you get it on both sides. You can do each stretch about 2 to 3 times. You're going to hold each one for about maybe 10 to 15 seconds. The next one, you're going to slightly rotate about 45 degrees, and then you can look down. You can take your hand and give it also a nice little tug just for the stretch in the back area of the muscle, the neck. Make sure you also get it on the other side. And the third one for the cervical is same kind of concept, 45 degrees, but now you're going to look up, or you're going to try to look behind you. You should feel the stretch right through here. And then same concept for the other one. Now, if you're sitting down, and I prefer doing this stretch kind of sitting down, you take a seat. And the reason why I prefer doing it sitting down is because now you can take your hand and kind of anchor it. What oftentimes happens is when you do the stretch, you tend to kind of raise your arm and you kind of start tilting, and now you're getting more of a low back or side bending type of thing. That's what we want to try to avoid. So you take one hand, you sit on your hand, you take the other hand, and do the exact same stretches. Okay, and those 3 stretches will address any neck issues. So if you're typing or you start feeling your neck nice kind of tight, address those 3 stretches, and we'll kind of work on that part. Okay, now moving on. Wrist, sitting down, typing, doing mechanical work with your tools out as a field tech. You may get some soreness on your forearm, which then will address into the tendons and make it develop something else. So some of the quick 3 stretches you can do to try to avoid that or prevent it or reduce it is we're going to start basically with what's called a prayer and reverse prayer. Work is very simple. Take your hands, start up here, and then slowly work your way down as far as you can go. Okay. The reverse prayer, same concept. You just take your hands, start at the bottom, and work your way back up. Okay. At some point, if you feel like you're not getting the stretch because you already have a pretty good flexibility, or you've been doing it for a couple of weeks, and you don't feel the stretch in your forearm or the wrist, then the next step you can do is you advance this. So you're going to straighten your arm out, straighten your wrist, take your other hand, and give it a nice little tug in extension. Okay. The opposite of it, you're going to hold it in flexion and give it a pull. When you're in this position, you should feel the stretch on the top portion of it, of your forearm. When you're in this position, you should feel the stretch on the bottom portion of the forearm. Okay, if you do those stretches That'll help reduce some of the carpal tunnels, help reduce some of the soreness or achiness that you may develop or feel either both in your forearm and also in your wrist. Now, as far as your shoulders, we're going to focus on the shoulders and also the pecs and also the back. The first thing we're going to start is stretching your what's called the posterior capsule, or kind of the rhomboid or the scapular area over here. You're going to take one hand and we're going to do what's called horizontal adduction. You're going to bring it across your chest, take this hand, and give it a nice little tug. When you do this stretch, you should feel all the stretch in the back area, the rhomboids. Maybe you might get a little bit of upper traps and a little bit of posterior deltoid as well. Okay. The opposite of that is to try to get the pecs. The best way to do that, the opposite of that is to try to get the pecs. The best way to do that, either find a wall, okay, you're gonna face the wall. You literally put your arm flat against the wall, face the wall, and then you're gonna rotate and move and face the opposite direction that your arm is located. So in this case, my left arm is up, and I'm going to rotate and look away from my arm to the right. In this stretch, you should feel like right along the what's called referred to as the pec major, and we're trying to get the opposite of the posterior capsule. The third one that you can do for your shoulder is just focus on the tricep muscle. And all you're going to do is you're going to take your hand and pretend you have an itch in the back of your back. You're going to try to touch your back with the other arm. You're going to grab the elbow and give it a nice little tug backwards. Here you should feel stretch all along the triceps area, specifically where it originates. Switch. Again, make sure you do each stretch at least 2 to 3 times. You're going to hold each stretch for at least about maybe 15, a minimum of 10 seconds, and about 15 up to 20 seconds. Try to get a good stretch in those areas. And so that completes for the shoulder, the upper back, and the posterior capsule. Now, for the lumbar, there's a couple ways you can do the lumbar, especially you can do sitting down, and we're going to demonstrate the way sitting down. It's referred to as a cat or camel. And when you're sitting, you try to loosen up the back. You can do what a cat does. This is also oftentimes referred to as cat or dog. In some places, if you do your yogi or if you do Pilates, oftentimes also referred to as cat dog. In this case, we're going to call it a cat camel. Same kind of concept. We're going to create a curvature in your back. Just stretch all the thoracic muscles. And the cat, we're going to get a little hyperextension. This thing can be done on the floor where you're on all fours and you hyperextend and kind of go this way. Okay? Another one you can do as you're sitting down to try to stretch the erectus spinae is you take your hand, sit up straight, and all you can do is slide down your leg and try to touch the floor. You're going to feel stretch in your lumbar and thoracic area, and stretching also your referred to as your latissimus dorsi muscle. Switch over to the other side. Take this hand, run it down your leg till you touch the floor. Okay. So try these 3 exercises to try to address any lumbar, low back issues that you might be having, any soreness, so if you're sitting and you're typing, or you're driving for prolonged periods of time as a field tech. Great stretches to try to kind of reduce some of the soreness, some of the achiness that you might be experiencing in your low back. So now moving on. The last portion I'm going to address is the lower legs or lower extremities. Okay, we're going to start with stretching your quads, your hamstrings, your iliopsoas, or also known as your hip flexors, along with your glute muscles, your calves as well. Okay, so we're going to start with your quads. One of the best ways, the easiest ways to stretch your quads is you get knee flexion. So you can, if you're very good at balancing, you can just stand in one spot. You grab one leg. Make sure you keep your upper body straight. Do not bend down. Because if you bend down, it diminishes the purpose of it. Sit up straight or stand up straight. Grab your quad and stretch it back. If your balance is kind of poor, make sure you have something to support yourself and you stretch it back. Make sure you get both sides. Now, as soon as we're done stretching our quads, we're gonna address our hip flexors. One of the best ways to do it, same kind of somewhat of a concept, you're gonna go one leg back, one leg forward, okay? And what you're doing is you're shifting your body forward, okay? Now you're taking the same side, the same arm, with the same side where the leg is back, you're gonna raise it up, and now, after you shift forward, you're gonna lean back, okay? Here, you should feel the stretch right along the iliopsoas of the hip flexor area. You may not necessarily feel it here in the quad, you may feel a little bit, but it's gonna be more in this area. Okay, make sure you switch. Same concept. Okay. Now, if you're an individual that tends to sit and you're at your desk, whether at home and you're working for long periods of time, your hip flexors and your quads are going to be very commonly get tight. This is one of the reasons why I always tell everybody to focus. If you're an office worker or you're at your desk for long periods of time, hip flexors and quads are one of the most key components you want to stretch, because that is one of the reasons why you kind of start getting low back issues. And the reason being is that as you're sitting in this position, these areas are starting to get tight, very common. When you get up, you kind of tend to do this kind of fashion where your back's here until you slowly kind of straighten out. And the reason being is that the quads and the hip flexors get tight from long periods of sitting down. So if you're an office worker or you're driving for a long period of time, let's say you're stuck in traffic, you're field trip, you're stuck in traffic for about an hour, 2 hours, as soon as you get out of your vehicle, or you're an office worker, as soon as you get up, make sure you get the hip flexor stretch. All right, moving on. Hamstrings. There's a couple ways you can stretch your hamstrings. One of the most basic ways is to pretty much just feet together and reach down. But one of the best ways I like to do it is called kind of sweeping the floor, where you're gonna put one leg forward, one leg back, and you're trying to sweep or touch your toes. Okay, you should feel the stretch along your hamstring muscles. Make sure you get both sides. The next one, now we're gonna go into your glutes. Here we're gonna do what's referred to as a figure four. Just let look down with your legs. If you have poor balance, you're gonna do a figure four, as you can see right there, number 4. Take a little bit of a seat, and you're gonna pull your leg or your knee away from your body. Here you should feel the stretch on the side where your knee is bent. Okay, and then the last one is going to be your calf muscle. That you need to do it one of two ways. You can lean against a wall or some flat surface. Keep your legs straight. Make sure your heel stays flat on the floor. And you're leaning forward. Okay. Make sure you get both legs. And like I mentioned, you always want to do at least 2 to 3 sessions or stretches in each muscle. You want to hold it for a minimum of 10 seconds, if not up to 15, if not 20 seconds would be ideal. So this is just a very basic stretch routine that you can do before your day, after your day, to try to help reduce some of the soreness. After any activity on the weekend, whether you're going biking, whether you're going hiking, whether you're working warrior, whether you're participating in any type of a team sport. Prior to your sport and after your sport, it would be highly recommended for you to do these stretches to help reduce some of the soreness, some of the achiness, and overall to try to prevent any kind of muscular injuries, or referred to as muscular strains. So thank you for your time. Again, my name is Mark Nunez, injury prevention specialist with Fit for Work. I'm located up here at the Orange County Icon office. If you're down in San Diego, you have another provider named Elisa Eden. My time up here, I'm here on Mondays and Thursdays, between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Feel free to stop by and see me if you have any questions, any issues, any injuries. We are also doing telehealth conferences or virtual consultations. So if you cannot come to the Icon office because of the whole COVID pandemic, feel free to kind of request a inquiry with your supervisor. I will receive it, we'll contact you, and we can do a teleconference or virtual consultation over the phone or over video to try to see if we can address any issues or answer any questions you might have. Thank you for your time.